All right, guys, I promised you a short video this week, so we're going to get right into this. And it really should feel short. It should go pretty quick, especially after that mess of adding and subtracting and number lines and everything that we did last week. This week, we're just multiplying and dividing integers. And really, everything that you've learned in the past is still true about multiplying and dividing. The only difference is now sometimes we have negative numbers, so we have to add a couple of rules to deal with those negative numbers. The nice thing about multiplying and dividing, the rules for multiplying and dividing integers, they're the same. It doesn't matter if I'm multiplying, it doesn't matter if I'm dividing. The rule's the same. Now, be careful, because this rule, the following rules here, they only work for multiplying and dividing. And that's one of the mistakes that you guys are going to make after last week, adding and subtracting. The rules are different than adding and subtracting. These rules only work when we multiply and divide. So be careful that you're only using these when it's appropriate. So the first rule, we're just going to jump right into it, and then we'll do some examples really quick here. If the numbers have the same sign, okay, if the numbers have same signs, then the answer is going to be a positive number. Okay, what that means is if both of the numbers are negative numbers, the answer is a positive number. If both of the answers are positive numbers, then the answer is a positive number. So for example, if I have -3 multiplied by -5, both of them are negative numbers. So when I multiply, I just do 3 times 5, that's just 15. But my signs are the same, so that means it's a positive 15, not a negative 15. And that's the biggest difference. If I were to add these together, my answer would be a negative number. But when I'm multiplying, the same sign means that it's a positive answer. Now, if my signs were different, if this was -3 times a positive 5, if my signs are different, so we'll write this down here. If the signs are different, the answer is going to be negative. So these have different signs. This is a negative number, this is a positive number. So I still do 3 times 5. My answer is just now a negative 15 instead of a positive 15. And that's really it. That's everything you need to know. I'm going to give you a step-by-step list here of what to do. I know some of you like that. It helps some of you. Others, it'll just be a little bit of extra information, and I can live with that. So we have 2 examples. We have -3 times 4. Be really careful with this right here. Here's what is going to happen, okay? If the number next to the parenthesis on the outside means that we multiply. So I could have -3 and -4 on the inside, but on the outside, my number's right next to the parenthesis. So that means I need to multiply these 2 numbers. But if this was -3 and the minus was on the outside, that doesn't mean multiply. The number is not right next to the parenthesis. That's a subtraction problem. So just be really careful. The number's right next to the parenthesis, so that means I'm going to multiply them together. And then in the second example, I have -25 divided by -5. I know it looks like a fraction, but remember that that fraction bar also means divide. All right, so step 1. We'll just go through this really quick. See if the numbers have the same or different signs. So use your eyes, look at them. If they're both negative, you're going to get a certain answer. If they're different, you're going to get a different answer, okay? So the same signs, if you remember from before, same signs means that we have a positive answer. Different signs means that we get a negative answer. So if you look at them and they're both negative, the answer comes out positive. If one's positive, one's negative, then we get a negative answer. If they're both positive, well, that's all you've ever done in the past, and you know that that answer is a positive. So step 3, obviously either multiply or divide the numbers. And kind of ignore the sign. So let's look at these examples. I've got -3 times 4. I'm going to ignore the signs for just a minute. 3 times 4, I know that. That's simple. That's just 12. So I'm going to ignore the signs for just a minute, and I'm just going to multiply. And then the same thing with this one. -25 divided by negative 5. I'm going to ignore the negatives for a minute. Just 25 divided by 5. I know that that is 5. Now I can worry about the signs. That's step 4. Put the sign from step 2, whatever it's going to be, in front of our answer from step 3. Really, just this is where we look at the signs and decide. This is a negative, this is a positive. They have different signs, so my answer is going to be a negative number. This one, they're both negatives. They have the same sign, so my answer is actually going to be a positive 5. And we don't always have to write a plus in front of it. I'm just trying to show you that it is a positive 5. And that's it. That's your lesson for the week. We're going to practice this a lot. We're going to mix it up with adding and subtracting so that you can get some practice not mixing up the rules. So before I let you go, I'm going to do a couple of problems with you. These 3 on the left, I'm going to do them by hand, and then the 3 on the right we'll do on the calculator, just so you can see what it looks like. So I've got negative 4 times negative 8. I'm going to ignore my signs for just a minute. 4 times 8, I know that that's 32. Now I have a negative 4 and a negative 8. So they have the same sign, which means my answer is positive 32. And I'm done. Number 3, negative 25 divided by negative 5. I'm going to ignore my signs for a minute. 25 divided by 5, I know that that is 5. Now if I look at the signs, a negative and a negative are the same, so my answer is a positive number. So I just leave the 5 like it is. Number 5 here, I've got a negative kind of floating out in front all by itself. And we're going to actually do a whole quick little lesson on negatives with fractions and what they mean. But right now, I've got 35 divided by 7. So that's what I'm going to focus on. 35 divided by 7, I know that that's 5. Now I'm going to look at the signs. I've got one negative floating out here, all by itself. I don't have 2 negatives. I don't have 2 positives. I've just got 1 negative, which means my answer is going to be a negative 5. And we'll go in more depth later this week on those ones. Over here on the right, 2, 4, and 6. Let's do those on the calculator just so you can see the buttons and make sure you understand how it works. Negative 5 times 20. The biggest thing is I want to make sure my calculator looks the same as what's on the paper. So when I turn it on, my negative button's right here at the bottom. So negative 5, and that dot means multiply. Negative 5 times 20. Hit enter, do the calculator do my thinking for me, and I get negative 100. And I can double check that. I know that 5 times 20 is 100, and I know that a negative times a positive, those are different signs, so my answer is going to be negative. For number 4, negative 49 divided by 7. You can probably do that in your head, but let's show it to you on the calculator as well. I'm going to make it look like this. I could just put in negative 49 divided by 7, but I'm going to actually push the fraction button, and we'll do it this way. And on the top, so we've got our fraction button right here, n over d. On top, I have negative 49, and on the bottom, I have a 7. And when I hit enter, it tells me that my answer is negative 7. Now, I know that 49 divided by 7 is 7, and I know that a negative, 1 negative on top, and a positive on bottom, those are different signs, so my answer is still a negative. Number 6, negative 4 in parentheses next to negative 5, next to 2. That just means negative 4 times negative 5 times 2. And again, I'm going to make it look the same on the calculator. I'm going to put a parenthesis, and I'm going to put negative 4 inside of it. And then I'm going to make another parenthesis and put negative 5 inside of it. And I'm going to make a third parenthesis and put a 2. So it looks exactly like it looks like on the paper. Hit enter, and I get 40. And I got 40 because a negative times a negative turns it into a positive. And then I'm multiplying that positive number by this positive number, so it stays positive. That's how come my answer is a positive. And then 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times 2 is 40. So I get 40. And 5 problems to try on your own. They should go pretty quick. I would like you to try it with and without the calculator. If nothing else, just use the calculator to check your work. Make sure that you're doing it correctly. But I want you to try these doing both, doing them without the calculator and putting them in with the calculator, just to make sure that you're doing them correctly. So good luck.